My name is Marc Klaas. I'm a registered Democrat. I'm the founder of the Klaas Kids Foundation. And most importantly, I'm the father of kidnap and murder victim Polly Klaas. Polly's tragedy was so outrageous and so avoidable that it helped to inspire criminal justice reform in California that effectively cut violent and property crime in half by 2003. I will be your host today. Welcome to the Rescue California podcast. We are here today to discuss the recent crime trends in California, including smash and grabs, and possible legislative solutions to combat these crime trends. Our purpose is to hold Governor Gavin Newsom and his government responsible for the destruction of property and loss of livelihoods for both business owners and workers. Rescue California's new mission statement is a nonpartisan effort to protect California, Okay, our new mission statement is a nonpartisan effort to protect Californians from legislation that cripples Californians' quality of life. We engage civil discussions to acknowledge problems and come up with solutions to this diverse state. The only way that this will happen is if we unite as nonpartisans. Before we begin, please support us, Rescue California, by helping us to educate your friends and neighbors. Please visit our website at rescuecalifornia.org, click like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more. I have two guests today. Mike Hestrin is a Riverside County District Attorney. He's been with Riverside DA's Attorney's Office for 25 years. Mike has helped to reimagine the approach to investigations, vigorous prosecution of serious and violent felons, crime prevention efforts, and state-of-the-art victim support services. Mike's core focus is for tough traditional prosecutions of serious and violent felonies. Mike, I'll interpret that to mean that you believe that the consequences of crime should extend beyond hand-holding and data manipulation. My other guest is Fresno County Sheriff Margaret Mims. Sheriff Mims has been a peace officer since 1980. She was the first female deputy sheriff to attain the ranks of lieutenant, captain, and assistant sheriff. In 2006, she became the first female in the history of Fresno's County Sheriff's Office to be elected sheriff. Sheriff Mims has been awarded many accolades, including an award of heroism and life-saving by the Fresno County Board of Supervisors in 2009, and more recently, the John F. Kerrigan President's Award by the California Narcotics Officers Association in 2019. Thank you both for being here. This segment will focus on the recent crime trends in California. Let's take a look at what citizens of California have to say.
This year, criminal activity up more than 8% in San Francisco, and in Los Angeles, violent crime rising almost 6%. All this putting California residents on edge.
Literally every block there was police cars, police on motorcycles, bikes.
Oh my God, this is disaster. This is so scary.
The images are stark, frightening, smash and grabs. Follow home robberies.
Right.
What's going on in your mind as you're looking at things like that?
I mean, it's sad.
How do you feel about this crime that's going on?
It's terrible.
Couple that with cell phone apps like Citizen that tell you when crimes are happening in your neighborhood. On the Citizen app, do you see all those little crimes that happen?
Yes.
Does it make you nervous?
Yeah, my wife's more nervous than I am.
You think it's a desperation?
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I honestly think that.
People are struggling right now, for sure.
It can be unnerving. Change the way you do things. Things as simple as taking a walk. You tend to walk now looking over your shoulder to see if anybody's behind you?
Yeah.
You're nervous.
Nervous.
I'm very careful. When I pull into my garage, I close the garage first before I get out of the car.
What's happening is making you nervous.
Yeah, I think about it more.
The LAPD is warning about this crime trend, and now they reveal they're investigating more than 100 cases.
Additional security video shows other potential victims hiding out in a neighbor's backyard as the robbery is taking place, leaving people in this community worried that what happened was a follow home robbery, a concerning new crime trend in LA.
Well, it's definitely scary.
I think it gets dangerous. You know, you're scared to come home alone at night.
Why is crime going up? Why is this happening?
Well, there are undoubtedly many reasons why crime goes up and goes down, and there are people who study crime for a living who won't even have an opinion about it until 4 or 5 years down the road. But undoubtedly, bad law and bad policy is driving this most recent spike in crime that we're seeing in Los Angeles.
Wow. It reminds me of 1993. We had the same things going on. People didn't want to be alone at night. People were afraid for their children. These so-called experts that can't come up with reasons for 5 or 6 years could talk to me, and I'll tell them it's because we're in a situation now where there is no accountability for crime in California. It's a trend that's been going on for some years now. Sheriff Mims, what are you and your fellow sheriffs seeing in your county? What are the recent crime trends in Fresno?
So Fresno County is located right in the middle of the state of California, in the middle of the Central Valley, the San Joaquin Valley. And crime trends in our mostly urban areas are like is happening in the Bay Area as well as Los Angeles. These smash and grabs are getting very, very brazen. Criminals feel emboldened because of the lack of accountability. And we're finding that's going up. And again, in our urban areas, the city of Fresno, for instance, the last 2 years, the homicides have just spiked up to in the 70s in that city of 500,000 people. What we're seeing troubling in the county areas is our homicides may not be going up, but our crimes involving guns, and these aren't guns held by lawful citizens. These are guns being used by gang members and those who are committing crimes. What's gone up is shooting at a vehicle and brandishing weapons. That we're seeing that increase. So that's straight across the board in our Central Valley, what's happening.
Well, I was going to ask you if you're staffed up enough to handle the smash and grabs, but now we're talking about potential violent crime as well. How is that working?
Well, I think it's an effect of what we've seen historically. Rather than point a finger at just one thing that's causing our problem, it's an accumulation over the years of bad law, bad initiatives that are misleading to the public. Think about what we used to have in plain language: use a gun and you're done, 10-20 life, 3 strikes and you're out. Those were straightforward, believable, accurate descriptions of what the laws were. Look at Prop 47. The description was safe schools and neighborhood. Extremely misleading, not straightforward. You had to do a lot of digging to figure out what it did, and what it did was make our neighborhoods and schools less safe.
Well, could you then explain to us just a little bit what Prop 47 is?
Sure. Prop 47 was an initiative. Again, the then Attorney General, our now Vice President Kamala Harris, wrote the title and summary and called it the Safe Schools and Neighborhoods Act. What it did was reduce many felonies to misdemeanors, some property crimes as well as some drug crimes. And so now when people say, well, felony crimes are going down, well, yeah, because you made them misdemeanors. That, of course, is going to happen. But what it did is several things and our district attorney will probably be able to expound on this, but they lost a tool that they use to hold people accountable, where we won't charge you with the felony, we'll charge you with the misdemeanor if you agree to get better, to go to a program, to get well. And people took advantage of that. But after Prop 47 facing a misdemeanor, people wouldn't show up to court. They're not going to take advantage of that because there was no hammer. So it really was devastating. And again, you're kind of normalizing behavior when you make it a misdemeanor. That was really the start of when we started seeing the huge growth in homeless camps. That's what happened. We started seeing people in homeless camps that cover blocks. And it was started with Prop 47, compounded by Prop 57. And at the beginning of all of it, there was a realignment that kind of pushed the state problems onto counties.
District Attorney Hestrin, does this sync with the crime situation in your county?
It does. I agree with Sheriff Mims. You know, this isn't what we're seeing in my county is general increase in crime over the last 10 years. Specifically, we've seen the murder rate go up over the last few years. Although I do have to say we're not as bad as California statewide. 31% last year increase in the murder rate, and Los Angeles County went up 45% in 1 year. Those are stunning numbers in terms of the number of homicides. So, we're seeing increases in crime. We're seeing increases in theft crime. In Riverside County, car thefts are through the roof. I can explain why. It has to do with realignment and Prop 47, the combination of those two terrible laws. But I think something the sheriff said I want to expound on, and that is that we didn't get here overnight. And it really is, it's been 10 years of so-called criminal justice reform. And I say so-called because I don't believe that those people that call themselves that in California are truly reforming the system, nor do I think that they want to. I think they want to destroy the system and replace it with something else. But to call it reform when you're systematically taking apart and taking away the tools that law enforcement uses to keep the public safe, that's not reform. That's an experiment foisted on the people of California. And that's what's been happening for 10 years. And it's the unsuspecting public that's been suffering the consequences.
Well, you mentioned realignment. You mentioned 10 years. I suspect you're talking about AB 109. Could you explain just a little bit to our audience what AB 109 is?
So AB 109, I believe it passed in 2012, came out of the legislature. And what it did was it took crimes, supposedly low-level felonies, and it said they're no longer going to be punished by sending people to state prison. You're going to do their time, their their prison time. They're going to do that in the local jail. So here's the problem for the residents of Riverside County. When that law went into effect, we already had a shortage of jail bed space for the population. Since that law went into effect from 2012 to now, so 10 years, we have had an overcrowded situation in our local jail to the point where when someone in Riverside County is arrested for, say, car theft, they steal a car, and say they have a prior and they've got a criminal record. My prosecutors go into court and we prosecute them for that felony. Stealing a car is a felony in California. They go into court, they prosecute them for that felony, and let's say that the prosecutors want 2 years custody time. Judge agrees, they go into custody for 2 years in the local jail because of AB 109. In Riverside County, they're going to do about 10 days of that 2-year sentence. And then they're kicked out, and it's called a Fed kick. And everybody in our jail knows how this works. And they come into our courts and they say, Your Honor, I want my Fed kick. And they're getting kicked out of our jails in about 10 days on a 2-year sentence. And by the way, when they are kicked out, the law says that their entire 2-year sentence is deemed served. So you tell me if you think that's going to be enough to deter car thieves. I'll tell you it isn't. And we've seen car thefts go through the roof. And so when you take away the consequences and you take away any deterrence, believe me, it's going to have an effect, and it's having its effect.
So car thefts, Mercedes-Benz, BMWs, Teslas, are these the cars that are being taken?
Well, sometimes, but that's not, here, who's really suffering from car thefts? Working men and women who are trying to get their kids to school. They're trying to get to their job. They come out, they're busy people, they're regular folks, and their car's gone. And that's who really suffers. And, so I've heard people say, well, insurance covers it. Yeah, but, you're talking about working people trying to get by, eke out a living. And now they're going to have to go through the whole process of, going through insurance. They're without a car. They can't get to work. It's a nightmare for people. It really is. And I think that, our leaders in this state are out of touch. They're out of touch with the regular citizens who live under the laws that are written in Sacramento.
Now, well, these are the same people that created this turnstile system of justice that keeps regurgitating the same individuals again and again and again because they know there won't be any consequences to the crimes that they commit. Now, on the other hand, even with the recent surge in crime, California Governor Gavin Newsom continues to argue that police and prosecutors have enough legal tools to go after these perpetrators. Newsom has called out local officials who choose not to do so. So I would assume that this might be some finger pointing at you. Let's just listen to what the governor has to say.
And I totally reject that people can't do anything about retail theft. I mean, I didn't go to law school. I wasn't smart enough to go to law school. I couldn't pass the LSAT, but I can read the penal code sections and forgive me, look them up. 666, Google it right now. Penal code section, forgive me if I'm off, but I think it's 459.5. Those are existing penal code sections. There's probably 4 or 5 others where you can charge people. And a lot of these damn DAs out there, Republican DAs, act like they can't do a damn thing because Prop 47. That's not true.
Looking a little defensive there, Gavin. So listen, we do have a lawyer on the panel here. DA Hestrin is a lawyer. Do you have enough tools in your toolbox?
You know, with all due respect to the governor, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Let me give you how it works straight every day in our courts. Somebody steals however amount of merchandise, goes into a retail establishment. By the way, the vast majority of retail establishments, again, are mom and pop stores. Not talking about Targets and Walmarts, but put that aside, go into a retail establishment and they steal $900 worth of merchandise. We can only ever charge them with a felony. And it doesn't matter if they've got, I'm sorry, we can only ever charge them with a misdemeanor. Right. I misspoke.
Right.
If it's under $950, we can only ever charge them with a misdemeanor. And it doesn't matter if they've been convicted 1,000 times of previous misdemeanors. We can never, ever charge them with a felony for that theft. They can go, the criminals can go into a store, steal $900 worth of merchandise, go the very next day, steal another $900 and do so for 10 days in a row, get caught each time. And we cannot aggregate the amount and say that that's felony behavior. The laws are broken. The people of this state understand that. It's our leaders who refuse to accept that. I mean, look, I'm telling you, theft has become, it's a free-for-all all across the state because the criminals know, and they go in there with their, they have calculators on their phones. And so they're putting things in bags and making sure they don't get up to $950. We're not going to be able to charge them with anything but a misdemeanor. And back to my previous point about AB 109, in Riverside County, a misdemeanor, if someone is arrested and well, they're site released for misdemeanors, but they won't even go into the jail at all for a misdemeanor in our county. Not at all.
So this then is, I would say, an unintended consequence of the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act. I don't know, Sheriff Mims, how does this play in? How does this play in Fresno?
Well, I do, when I see that clip of the governor, I do see how defensive he's getting. Someone did not brief him properly because he got it wrong. The DA is exactly right. These people are arrested. They are given court dates. They're cited out, but because of the realignment and the amount of state inmates that we have in our jails now, we have no room for misdemeanors. So they are getting arrested. They're getting cited out. They're getting a court date. But what happens? They don't show up. It's a misdemeanor. They don't show up to court. And so that's our problem. So when the governor accuses law enforcement of being the problem, when it's something else, I've got a big problem with that.
Jesus, it's just absolutely unbelievable. So now, before we talk about solutions, let's just go over a little bit of these laws that have undermined our system. AB 109 was passed by Californians in 2011. It diverts defendants convicted of less serious felonies to serve time in the local county jail rather than the state prison, which ultimately regurgitates them out. Proposition 47 from 2014, the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act, has created this epidemic of crime, of retail crime in California that absolutely nobody can get a handle on because the tools do not exist. Proposition 57 is the proposition that allows parole consideration for nonviolent offenders, changes policies on juvenile prosecution, and authorizes sentence credits for rehabilitation, good behavior, and education. You know, those are the very same kinds of systems that allowed my daughter's killer to get out onto the street time after time after time after time until he finally murdered a little 12-year-old girl after he stole her out of her bedroom and raped her. It's just absolutely unbelievable to me that we're going back to that time when there's absolutely no reason to do so. So let's talk about solutions. Recently, attorney Thomas Hilchak from a law firm that has worked with the Prosecutors Association introduced a ballot measure that would address the surge in retail theft in California by reinstating 3 versions of previously existing criminal justice laws to restore accountability for repeat offenders. The initiative proposes to add section 666.1 to the penal code to authorize felony offenses for repeat offenders. Those with 2 or more convictions, theft convictions, will be punishable by up to 3 years in county jail at the discretion of the judge. As mentioned before, Proposition 47, the so-called Safe Neighborhoods and School Act, classifies petty theft and shoplifting under $950 as misdemeanors, regardless of how many times the person has been convicted of theft crimes. The initiative also proposes to reenact Penal Code Section 12022.6, which provides sentencing enhancements depending on the amount of property damage during the commission of the crime. For example, if the value of a property damage is $50,000 or more, an additional year in jail can be added to the sentence. Lastly, the initiative proposes to reenact Penal Code Section 786.5, which will allow district attorneys from counties where any portion of the planning, instigating, promoting, or aiding in the commission of the theft occurred to prosecute the crimes. If multiple offenses involving the same defendants, the same merchandise, the same scheme, and or similar activity occur in multiple counties, then any of those counties have jurisdiction for all of the offenses. District Attorney Hestrin, educate me on that. I don't quite understand what that means. Does that mean that every district attorney can go, or you can break it up? How does that work?
No, it's a question of jurisdiction. It means that a district attorney who had any part of the crime in their county would be able to charge the entire crime. So, you know, we deal with this all the time in crimes that share jurisdiction, and we work it out amongst ourselves as district attorneys.
Good. So it's not pitting you guys, you folks against each other.
No, I don't believe that's the intent of it. I don't believe that's how it would work. It would just give jurisdiction to a district attorney where any part of the kind of the larger offense took place.
Is it a good idea?
I think it is. I think the initiative, as you've described it, is a good start.
Sheriff Mims?
Making these laws tougher is important. However, as the district attorney alluded to before, in our local jails, because of realignment, we don't have the room. We don't have the room to put additional people in our jails because the state has done everything they can to reduce their prison population. Remember, realignment, Prop 47, Prop 57 had nothing to do with public safety. It has everything to do with reducing the state prison population. And again, they're pushing this responsibility onto counties. And every day we're full in Fresno County. Our jail is full every single day. So whenever I hear about, you know, enhanced local time, that kind of worries me because we need to build more jail space then, because that's going to be more people we need to hold. Or we can change our thought about state prisons. You know, when the federal judge told the state for realignment, you must reduce your population, they had other options. They did not have to make realignment and design it the way they did. They could have built more prisons, and they didn't do that. Instead, they actually closed a prison in Fresno County, which exacerbated their crowding problem. So I think we need to talk more about what's the state going to do in their system to help counties hold people accountable, because we're full.
Yeah, well, I suppose another way to address the problem is just to eliminate crime altogether, just to say there are no crimes, right? And
Well,
then,
your friend and mine, Mr. Mike Reynolds, the father of 3 strikes,
Sure.
his comment, I quote him all the time. He says, of course, crime is going down because you're making it legal.
yeah, I got a call from Mike just a couple of weeks ago, and he's just fired up about this. He can't even believe what's going down. Now, a couple of weeks ago, also, Democratic Assembly Member Rudy Salas of Bakersfield introduced a bill that, if passed by state lawmakers and a majority of voters, will reverse a key aspect of Prop 47 by moving the felony threshold for petty theft and shoplifting from $950 back to $400. Assemblyman Salas states, "Enough is enough. We need to fight back against the criminals who are stealing from our communities. We have seen the unintended consequences of Prop 47's weakening of our theft laws, and I believe California voters are ready to make their voices heard on this issue again." I'm not sure I want to trust a Democrat to write a law that's supposed to protect our citizens, because really they're so much of the problem. They've so undermined our system. Now, a few hours after Salas unveiled his bill, a group of Republican state lawmakers, Assembly members Kevin Kiley, James Gallagher, and Jim Patterson, introduced another bill, this time to fully repeal Prop 47 altogether. Sheriff Mims, are these initiatives a good idea?
They're absolutely a good idea. I'm reminded, though, a couple of years ago, they tried to change just a little part of Prop 47, and it had to do with guns, that if you steal a gun, no matter what, it's a felony. Because currently, if you steal a gun that's worth less than $950, it's a petty theft and a misdemeanor. They couldn't even get that done. So when people cry and scream and pound their desks about they're tired of gun violence, they couldn't even change that part of the proposition that would help us with gun violence. So I'm just not very hopeful. There's a high threshold for the legislature to approve a bill to get on the ballot when it's passed by initiative. It's a high threshold. I don't have any confidence with our current legislatures that they're going to reach that threshold.
DA Hestrin?
Repeat the question. Do I think it's a good idea?
Yeah, do you think that these proposed laws are a good idea?
Well, I do. I think that I think they'd all be a good start. And I say that and with a little bit of caution, similar to what the sheriff is saying. I don't think there's any magic silver bullet here that's going to fix everything. Part of what we're seeing across the state is that people have lost confidence in our laws to protect them. So there's been a demoralization. There's been this kind of creeping sense of lawlessness around our state. And so, yeah, I think these laws, these proposals are a good idea. But I think that it's going to take years to kind of, I guess, fix the damage that's been done. And I want to make another point. California wasn't alone and hasn't been alone in what they've been doing over the last 10 years. Over the last 10 years, half of all of the states in the union have raised their threshold for what constitutes felony theft. And as of right now, 38 out of 50 states have a threshold of around $1,000, including California. So, that's a movement, and those are, red states and blue states. So this has been going on all across the country. So when people say, well, why is the crime, why are thefts and crime going crazy all over the country if it's just, you're railing against Prop 47? Well, unfortunately, the ideas contained in 47 have spread all over the country. And now we're seeing the results now. And so I do think these are good starts, but it's going to take more than just a few laws. It's going to take the citizens regaining trust in their government, in law enforcement, and in the laws to protect them and to protect property rights. It's going to take a long time for that to take place.
Well, listen, I can't give you a silver bullet, but I'm going to give you Marc's magic wand. So you wave that wand and you tell me what it's going to take to get us back to a place where people are not afraid to go outside and crime is actually on the decline?
Well, I think what we have to get back to basics and common sense. We have to rise above partisanship. This is not Republican and Democrat. I guarantee you that the vast majority of Democrats in this state want to be safe in their schools. They want their kids to be safe on the streets. So, you know, I really don't see this as a Democrat Republican thing. We've got to get back to where the people that serve the citizens of this state wake up and understand what it's like to live under the laws that they create, that they make. And we've got to bridge this massive disconnect with, you know, the folks that are, frankly, I think they've become, they live in a cocoon. They live in a ivory tower, and they don't understand the real life ramifications. You know, in Riverside County, the fentanyl epidemic is raging. The number of deaths in Riverside County are up 800% in the last 5 years. We're going to hit over 500 fentanyl poisonings this year. The legislature won't lift a finger to help prosecute drug dealers and traffickers. I mean, it's hard to understand why. So the magic wand has to be this. The public has to wake up. The public has to wake up and get their leaders to start passing laws that protect their safety. When that happens, we will begin to turn this around and turn the corner, and we can begin to rebuild the trust that's necessary for the citizens to trust in law enforcement and believe in the laws.
And Sheriff Mims, I'm going to hand you the same wand. What are you going to do? How are you going to make us safe again?
Well, I think that anybody that doesn't tell the truth ought to be zapped somehow. Because we need to get back into telling the truth. And I pointed out before how straightforward our initiatives and laws used to be. The title meant what it said. It's not that way anymore. People don't tell the truth or spin it in a way that makes people think something else is going to happen. And Marc, it breaks my heart when I watch that news clip. And we had citizens out there saying, I'm afraid, I'm scared. It kind of makes me think maybe we need to hit bottom before legislators wake up. It's sad to say, but the DA was right. They're not the ones out there being victimized. They're the ones that have the bodyguards that keep them safe, not our regular citizens. When we talk about vehicle thefts and lately catalytic converter thefts, it is not the Mercedes-Benz, it's the Priuses and the Toyotas that are getting stolen, and the catalytic converters being stolen. So it is, in fact, the working people. And when I see that news clip, I think my whole half my life has been dedicated to try to keep people safe. And we're just swimming upstream. There's no truth in sentencing. Right now in California, the DA brought up the sentencing. If somebody is sentenced to 10 years, automatically, right off the bat, it's 5 years. They only have to do 50% of their time when they're sentenced. So there's no truth in sentencing anymore. We need to start telling the truth.
Yeah, well, listen, to wrap this up, I have to agree with everything that both of you said. I think what the people of California have to do is take a good, hard look at the individuals that they are electing to represent them and demand that those individuals start taking public safety seriously and start passing laws that are going to protect people as opposed to endanger people. And certainly that's a trend that has to completely change. It's the other side of the coin. Listen, I want to thank both of you for being here today. It helped clarify for my mind, and hopefully for anybody else who's listening, exactly what some of these problems are regarding crime in California. So thank you for joining us, DA Hestrin and Sheriff Mims. It's been a pleasure talking to both of you.
Marc, I'd like to just add that we have a minute or two, or 3 or 4, if any of our participants in the call would like to ask a question. If you go ahead and enter the question in the chat room, then I can call you out and you can unmute your phone. We have Mr. Taylor. If you could identify yourself and say who you're with, that would be great.
With CBS 13 in Sacramento. I'm just trying to get an update on the initiative Are signatures currently being gathered, and can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, so the initiative was submitted prior to the deadline in December, and it's expected to come out of title and summary by the end of January. It will then be out for signatures until the end of April. It will require approximately 650,000 signatures, valid signatures of registered voters. In advance of that, Rescue California will be assisting the proponents in gathering signatures. And we are asking people to go to our website at rescuecalifornia.org and please sign the petition that we've put there just to be a supporter of public safety. You know, this is approached by many different ways. Legislatively, there are approaches. I think the citizens' voice has always been through the initiative process in California. And then I think also that we would like to encourage people to be available to get signatures as well and join the team. With that, I hope that answers your question, but that's roughly the timeline. And it will be, you know, if we qualify, we get on the November ballot.
Any other questions? We at Rescue California are calling on Governor Gavin Newsom to take immediate action to address the rise in crime and mitigate further damage. Head over to rescuecalifornia.org to do as Ann says. Sign the public safety petition and tell the governor to stop crime now. That will be it for this week's podcast. Thanks for watching, and remember to like, subscribe, and share. Feel free to comment below on what subjects you would like us to cover.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you.